Hey everyone, today we are going to be talking about converting units of time. So before we get started, what I want you to do is pause the video and I need you to copy down the conversion chart right here. So I need you to have all of these in your math journal, and please, please, please make sure that you copy it down neatly and copy it down somewhere where you'll be able to find it tomorrow in class, because we will be using this conversion chart in class and I need you to have it written down somewhere where you can find it. So go ahead, pause the video and write down the conversion chart into your math journal. All right, so hopefully you have your conversion chart written down in your math journal now. So what we are going to do is really quickly review a couple of things before we get started. So first of all, you guys should probably have a basic understanding of these this chart in general. You should probably know that there are 60 seconds in a minute. There are 60 minutes in 1 hour, 24 hours in a day, 7 days in a week, 52 weeks in a year, 12 months in a year, and 365 days in a year. So that is what you will need to know to be able to convert units of time. The other thing that we need to review before getting started with conversions is our conversion process. Before you even start converting, you're going to have to decide if you're going to be multiplying or if you're going to be dividing. So when you're converting, remember that when you're going from a larger unit to a smaller unit, you're going to multiply. So let's think of an example here. If I were to give you a problem where you have to convert hours to minutes, you would know, well, you would start by looking at this one right here, because that's what you're starting off with. Are hours bigger or smaller than minutes? Excuse me. Well, you should know at this point that an hour is going to be bigger than a minute. So you're going from larger to smaller. When you're converting from larger to smaller, you're always going to multiply. Now, when you're converting the opposite direction, so say I tell you to convert from an hour to day. Okay, so if I tell you to convert from hours to days, then what you would have to do is you would say, okay, let's start with this one again. Is an hour bigger or smaller than a day? Well, you should also know that an hour is smaller than a day. So when you're converting from smaller to larger, you're going to divide. All right, let's look at a couple of examples here. The first thing that you're going to do when you look at a conversion problem is you're going to figure out, just like we talked about, if you're going from smaller to larger or larger to smaller. So I'm going to look at this number right here. Are days bigger or smaller than hours? Well, hopefully you said that days are bigger than hours. So remember our hand motions. If we're going from bigger to smaller, we are going to be doing what? Multiplying. I hope you said multiplying. Now, I know I'm going to be multiplying this number right here by something, but I'm going to have to figure out what that number is. It's going to be 5 times something. The way you figure this out is you always look at the smaller unit. So you look at the hours and you say, how many hours are there in one day? Well, this is where your conversion chart comes in handy, because I'm going to say, okay, I'm going to go to my conversion chart and I'm going to figure out how many hours there are in one day. Well, if you look right here, I'm going to put a little star by it so you can see it. I can see right here that there are 24 hours in one day. And that is all you have to do to figure out what your other factor is in this multiplication problem. So you're going to be multiplying 5 times 24 to find your answer. 24, let's line it up, times 5. I know that 5 times 4 equals 20. And I know that 5 times 2 is 10, plus 2 is 12. So I have the answer 120. 5 days equals 120 hours. All right, see how simple that was? Let's look at the opposite one. So we're going to see here that we're converting from seconds to minutes. So let's look at this one. Are seconds bigger or smaller than minutes? Well, I hope you said smaller. Seconds are definitely smaller than minutes. So if I'm converting from a smaller unit to a larger unit, let's look back at this. When I'm converting from smaller to larger, I'm always going to divide. Now, what I'm going to show you is this. What you can do is you can go ahead and put your little division symbol, whatever it's called here, and sorry, not whatever it's called, you know what I'm talking about. And this number right here, just kind of like I said, well, I know I'm going to be multiplying 5 times something. 600 is going to be, or whatever the number is right here, is going to be my dividend. So this 600 is going to go inside the, is going to be the dividend. Now I just have to figure out what my divisor is, okay? Well, just kind of like I said up here, look at the smaller unit and say, okay, how many hours are in a day? Well, I'm going to look at my smaller unit here, seconds, and I'm going to say, how many seconds are there in a minute? Okay, well, this is where my, oops, not that chart, where my conversion chart comes in handy. I can look here and I can say, oh, well, there are 60 seconds in a minute. All right, let's go back to our problem here. 60 seconds in 1 minute. So I'm going to divide 600 by 60. 60 seconds in a minute. So I have 600 seconds. How many groups of 60 are there in 600? Well, this one's pretty simple because all I have to do here is multiply 60 times 10. And 60 times 10 is going to be 600. So I just took out 10 groups of 60, and that got me a remainder of 0. And so my answer, or my quotient, is going to be 10. So that means out of 600 seconds, there are 10 minutes in 600 seconds. All right, so that's pretty simple, right? So now what I have to move you guys on to is how to figure out how to solve a word problem with this. Now, today in class, we should have talked about using our cubes strategy. So if whether or not we have or have not, I'm going to review it. If I give you a word problem where you're going to be converting, or actually any word problem at all, we're going to start using our cube strategy to break down the word problem. So, first of all, let's look up here because this is an important reminder of why we're also doing this word problem. Sometimes there's going to be a remainder when you're dividing. You guys know this. When I'm dividing, when I'm converting, you know, from, say, like we just did seconds to minutes, and then I get a remainder, well, what am I supposed to do with that remainder? That's going to be another thing that you're going to be able to see with this word problem. Okay, so you guys should know at this point that when we read the word problem the first time, we're just going to read it straight through. We're not going to underline anything. We're not going to circle anything. We're just going to kind of get a feel for what the word problem is asking us. So the word problem says, 5th grade goes on a walking field trip to AMC every year. This year, the movie they want to see is 110 minutes long. How many hours and minutes long is the movie? Well, look right here. It says how many hours and minutes long is the movie. So that actually means that when I'm converting from minutes to hours, that I'm going to have both hours and minutes left. Okay, well, we'll talk about that in just a second. Let's go ahead and go through our cubes steps. So the first is C. What does C mean? C means you're going to circle the key numbers and write them down. So the key number in this problem, there really aren't many. We're going to circle it, 110 minutes. Oops, that's a terrible circling job, I'm sorry. So 110 minutes. So the key number here is 110 minutes. That's how long the movie is. Now, next step is the U. What does U stand for? It stands for underline the question. Now, this step is very important because we need to know exactly what we're supposed to be doing to answer this word problem. The question asks us, how many hours and minutes long is the movie? Now, when you guys are doing this, I want you to actually write the question under the U because that will help you kind of process what the question is asking you. Instead of just underlining it without really reading it carefully, you're going to be writing it out as well. So this question, now I'm not going to do it here because you know how long it takes me to write anything on this computer. So how many hours / minutes long is the movie? So let me just kind of, just so that we can see it, it's telling us to take the 110 minutes and it wants us to convert it to blank hours and blank minutes. Okay? So that's kind of what the question's asking us to do. 110 minutes equals how many hours and minutes? All right, now let's look at the B. What does the B stand for? It says box any like important words here. Okay, and I really think that the most important word here is hours, minutes, because we need to be looking to see what we're converting to, and that is hours and minutes. Okay. Next, we have the E, and that is evaluate the steps you will need to take. Okay. Now, that I say evaluate the steps because this can be used with any word problem, but in this case, we are just going to be deciding, are we dividing or are we multiplying? Okay, well, how do we figure that out? Well, I'm going to look at this conversion, right? I'm going from minutes to hours, right? Now, I might have some minutes there, but really I'm going from minutes to hours. If I'm converting from minutes to hours, we're going to look at the minutes. Is minutes bigger or smaller than hours? Well, minutes are smaller than hours. So I'm going from smaller to larger. If I'm converting from smaller to larger, that means I'm going to be dividing. Okay? So I'm going to, under E, I'm going to write divide because that is the operation I will want to use to answer this question. Okay? Now, the S is the final step. The S stands for solve. So now what we have to do is we have to actually do our division. Well, I told you guys before, you're going to take this number, well, here, let me get my color. I'm going to take this number right here, okay, and that's going to be my dividend, okay. So I have that written down as my dividend. Now I just have to figure out what is my divisor going to be. Well, let's think about it. Remember, I just said we're going to look and say, how many minutes are there in 1 hour? Okay, well, let's go to our conversion chart. That's what it's there for. How many minutes are in an hour? Well, hopefully you said 60. There are 60 minutes in 1 hour. So 60 becomes my divisor. All right, now we just have to go ahead and quickly divide this out. So 110 divided by 60, I'm going to say 60 times 1, because I know 60 times 2 is 120, and that's too much. We can't take away 120 from 110. So I'm going to go ahead and just take away 60, and that's going to get me with 50. Now, can I take any more groups of 60 away from 50? No, I can't. So 50 actually becomes my remainder. My quotient is 1 with a remainder of 50. So remember I said, what am I going to do with this remainder? Well, think about the word problem, okay? I had 110 minutes, and I took out however many hours there were. Well, there was one group of 60, so that was 1 hour. And the leftover is minutes. So I have a remainder of 50 minutes. Okay, so I actually have 1 hour, 50 minutes. So how many hours, minutes long is the movie? It's going to be 1 hour, 50 minutes. Okay, so that remainder is going to be the leftover units, which in this case is minutes. All right. Okay, please go back and rewatch that if you need to. But right now, in order to be prepared for tomorrow, I just need you guys to do 3 real simple practice problems on your own. You're going to go through and do these 2 conversion problems. Remember, check to see if you're going from smaller to larger or larger to smaller. Are you dividing or are you multiplying? This word problem, read it through carefully. Do your cubes strategy to answer it. And yes, I do mean go through all the steps and then answer the questions. And we will talk about them tomorrow. Have a good day.